I'm Marisa Norcross.
And I'm Dave Freund, so this must be the next page. Hi there.
It is. Hi. How's everything
How are you
going?
doing today?
Good.
It's going well with me. Good with you?
Yeah. Can't believe this
Okay.
is my last scheduled recording before maternity leave.
It is the last scheduled recording before baby Norcross.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so we better get right into it because the due date is just about here.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
and we don't want any interruptions. So my blog post that went out this morning is entitled, "Have You Charted the Course?" And you know that I have a love of boats. All of our listeners know I have a love of boats.
Yes.
And I started thinking about navigation. And I started thinking about the role of a leader to navigate. And so that's really why I wrote my post the way I did. That, you know, if we're not careful, as leaders, we have to chart the course. And when I think about the navigation theme, there's a lot of things that help us navigate. And one of the reasons why I love boating is because you're charting a course in an area where there aren't any roads. It's like we can only drive our cars where there are roads unless we've got some off-wheel, device of some sort, vehicle. But typically you can only drive where they tell you to drive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with a boat, you got this open water. You can just go. That's exciting, but it's also challenging because one never really knows what's underneath them as they're boating.
Mm-hmm.
And when we drive cars, we have maps. In navigation, in boating, it's called charts. And the charts give you the depth of the water. They'll identify certain landmarks. They'll kind of give you an idea of where you can go. And typically, like a lake like Otisco, where I've boated most of my life, there's only a couple spots where you would need to worry about where you are. Skinny Atlas, I love, every year when we do the boat show and we're launching boats for people that aren't familiar with the lake, they'll say, is there anything we need to watch out for in the lake in terms of stumps and rocks and sandbars and shoals? And we just say, nope, it's a good one. It's a great lake. It's deep. It's clear. You don't need to worry about running aground. The Thousand Islands are a completely different animal because, there's, and I forgot the number, 1,800 islands, something like that, but there's equal as many shoals. So a shoal is an island without a tree. So if it's a rock formation or something that's doesn't have a tree, it's called a shoal. The problem is a lot of those are just under the surface of the water. And those you really need to worry about. So some other aids that you have, and I've even seen some of these being placed in some lakes, like Otisco Lake for some reason, they just decided to put some of these in, but they'll put marker buoys. And so there are green buoys and red buoys. And typically they'll have a light on them so you can read them at night.
Mm-hmm.
And so a red marker buoy needs to be on the right or the starboard side of your boat. For whatever reason, they don't call both sides right and left. They call them starboard and port. So starboard is the right side of the boat. And when you're returning to the sea, right is on your starboard side. Don't ask me. I guess they had to come up with a way to say. So literally, if you are going back toward the ocean, the red will be on the right and the green will be on the left if you're coming from the ocean. So if you're going, let's say if you're in the Thousand Islands and you're going from Alexandria Bay to Clayton, you're going away from the sea. So the green marker buoys would be on the right side. If you're going from Clayton back to A Bay, the red marker buoys are on the right side because you're heading toward the sea. And that's important to know because a lot of times, so let's say you're in the Thousand Islands and it was nighttime, you wouldn't know which direction you're heading unless you knew that the right needs to be on the red needs to be on the right as you're returning to the sea. So those are just a couple things about navigation. I've learned some lessons the hard way. I think probably the two lessons that I learned, the one I learned the really hard way was when I did run aground once. And I was out with my family, and we were actually heading toward the sea, so to speak. We were going from Clayton toward Alexandria Bay, and I saw the marker buoy, this beautiful green marker buoy, right in front of me. And I had my charts, and I also have a GPS on my boat, and I have a depth sounder on my boat. And I was looking off beyond this marker buoy, and I saw some really big motor yachts anchored. And I thought, if the water's deep enough for them, it'll be deep enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than going in between the two marker buoys, I went just outside the one marker buoy. The problem was it wasn't a buoy. It was actually a marker light that was on a shoal. And I completely missed it. And I remember, so with my boat, just ahead of the propeller shaft is a wooden skeg that sits down, that's down there. And that's to help keep the boat going, in a straight line when you're in some rougher water. So all of a sudden I felt the boat rise up, and I knew what was going to happen. And then it hits the propeller and it stalls the engine. And we kind of drifted over. We actually floated right over this shoal, so it didn't do any damage to the structure of the boat, the wood hull of the boat, but it did bend my propeller pretty bad, and part of my support for my propeller got bent. But it was all because I didn't pay attention to where I was. My charts told me it was there. It was daytime, but I was just thinking about other things and thinking beyond it and thinking, I know what I'm doing. Boy, if you're trying to navigate for your team and you're not paying attention to where you are and what's going on in the water around you, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You really are at risk. So the next one, Marissa, that I'll share with our listeners that I shared with you before we started recording, this one was scarier. So again, we were up in the Thousand Islands, and I had a boat full of people going in a place that I've gone through before. I knew the water well, and we were outside of the normal shipping channels, if you can call it that. So there are no marker buoys here, but I have my charts. It tells me how deep the water is. I know that there are some shoals here and there, but again, I've made this trip several times. For some reason, I couldn't take my eyes off a seagull that was just floating in the water. And as I got closer, I realized the seagull wasn't floating. He was standing.
Mm-hmm.
And the water had dropped to a point where this would have been a shoal that I clearly would have crossed over, never having an issue. But because the water was so low, this shoal was just below the surface of the water. And it clearly would have ripped a hole in the side of my boat.
Wow.
And we probably would have sank, and I think you asked the question, do boats have sensors or some way of knowing how deep the water is? And yeah, so our boat had a depth sounder, but you can go from 180 feet of water to no water in 20, 30 feet,
Mm-hmm.
because these are cliffs that have been carved out up there, which makes it an extremely beautiful area, but a very treacherous one. So I think the question then would be, so what does this have to do with leadership? And I think it has everything to do with it. Are we charting a course for our team? Are we? So there's other things that you do in navigation. You have waypoints. So let's say to get from Alexandria Bay to Kingston, Ontario, because I've made that trip. My wife and I made that trip once on our anniversary with our boat. You can't just drive in a straight line. First of all, there's a bunch of islands in front of you. But what we did is we went from Alexandria Bay to Clayton, and then from Clayton we crossed over toward Kingston, Ontario. But you set waypoints. And your waypoints, so you, instead of driving knowing, okay, Kingston is my destination, that's not where I'm looking. I'm looking from one waypoint to another waypoint. It's almost like an intersection, if you can call it that, in the water. So I plan to go to this intersection, to this intersection, to that intersection, make this turn in this direction, and then I can go to my destination.
Mm-hmm.
So as leaders, are we setting up waypoints for our teams too,
Right.
so that they know where they are?
Right. So like defining the milestones while you're trying to reach your goals.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And at these waypoints, these milestones, these gates, if we can call it that, we have to continue to look. Has something changed?
Right.
In the case where the seagull was standing, every other year that I had been up at the river, I could go over that spot.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, the water was very, very low that year. And I just didn't catch it because I wasn't aware. Now, last year, the water was extremely high in the Thousand Islands.
Right.
So that also would show it. So let's say if the water was extremely high, something that used to be visible isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be a treacherous thing for us. So I think as leaders, we need to spend a lot of time charting the course and looking for what could be going wrong. What's changing from this year than last year. We need to communicate. Like last week we talked about don't major on the minors.
Mm-hmm.
But does our team understand the principles of this journey, why we're taking it, where we're going? Are we writing it down? Are we clarifying it for them so that they know exactly what we're trying to do?
And are they realistic?
Are they realistic? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or are they, and when they look at these goals, these waypoints, do they say, oh my goodness, there's no way we can get there.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get from here to where they want us to go with the tools that we have. So are we having enough conversation with them to let them know that we're understanding their concerns, we're seeing, the obstacles that they do. So if I think about the trip that my wife and I took to Kingston, did we have enough fuel? My boat has a 37-gallon fuel tank and it only has one. So I had to make sure, could I get where I needed to go with the fuel that I had?
Mm-hmm.
And how many gallons of fuel do I burn per hour at what RPM to get there? The same thing happens with our teams. Do we have enough resources, enough money for whatever's needed? Do we have enough people to get where we need to get to?
Mm-hmm.
One of my coaching clients has shared with me that their organization, one of their divisions, is expected to grow by 30 to 40% in terms of sales.
Wow.
In the next 12 months. But as this manager says, I don't have the people to do it. And I'm not sure that their corporate understands that.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the chart might be a great path that's been charted, but they haven't looked at all the extra things that have to happen when you chart the course. Something else that I just thought of. So when we ran aground up in the islands, it was interesting what happened. The very first thing that my daughter-in-law did. Now, Ashley has not grown up with boats, but the very first thing she did, which was brilliant, was she automatically went to the cuddy cabin in the boat to pick, because we typically will put a lot of like duffel bags and coolers, and we'll put it right on the floor in there because it's out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing she did was took everything off the floor and moved it up onto the bunks in case we were going to take on water. And I thought, does our team know what to do if there's an emergency?
Mm-hmm.
Do they know what to do if a storm hits of some sort? Those are the things that is all part of charting that course and planning where you're going to go in the event that something happens.
Right.
Hey, Marisa, have you ever worked in an organization that didn't seem to have any goals or objectives? Of course, that's kind of an unfair question because you're so young. You haven't worked in that.
No, I think, luckily no.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I remember once, and I got to be careful how much I say because who knows who's listening to my podcast. but I remember one organization that I was working at where there were all kinds of goals, like destinations, a lot of destinations but nobody charted the course to get there.
Right, no path.
And there was no path to get there. And I remember sitting at a Christmas dinner with a colleague, and while the leader of our organization was talking about the future, there was a band playing. Somebody else was having a Christmas party next to us, and the band was playing, this song "Dream, Dream, Dream," and I'm like, it was so ironic for me that what was supposed to be a tangible goal was appearing to me to be a dream, because the leader, and I think the leader meant very, very well, but he hadn't articulated the plan to get there. And those of us working there just said, yeah, right. It's just a pipe dream.
Right.
So we have to plan that trip.
Yep.
What are some things, Marisa, that, when you've been working in organizations that have helped you believe that there was a plan or that it was doable?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know that I'm a big planner, so
you are.
Maybe to a fault, I've gone into meetings and and said we need a more structured plan. But I think clarification is so important. Being realistic is important. I like having milestones or those waypoints that you talked about. I think that's a great way to check in and say, are we on track? Is this still where we want to go?
Right.
Is the next waypoint where we need to be headed? Because maybe it's not.
Right.
Maybe by the time you got to waypoint number 2, the conditions changed and waypoint number 3 doesn't make sense anymore.
Right.
So I think those are all important when planning.
And studying the results of how we've gotten from the first waypoint to the second one, if we really study results, not the plan, we'll be able to prevent either an exaggeration or a stagnation for our team.
Right.
I was thinking of there was in one of our a boat society that I'm a member of. Surprisingly, I'm a member in 2, but one is the Lyman Boat Owners Association, because Lyman is the brand boat I have, and there was a couple that had a 30-foot express cruiser Lyman, and so an express cruiser is just, it has a cabin in it, and it has a helm that's a little bit higher above the main helm, so you can see better. But these folks did what was known as the Great Loop, where they went down the Mississippi, around Florida, and up the East Coast, and then back up through the barge. I think they might have even gone through the barge canal, because I'm pretty sure they passed through Syracuse and then back into Lake Erie that way to their home port. My guess is up near Sandusky, Ohio. But it was interesting. There were times, so I was watching their blog as they're making this journey, and it took them. They took some breaks here and there, but it took them, I think, almost a year to make the full loop. But there were times when they didn't leave port. They stayed put because of the weather conditions. They're going in an area that's going to be really stormy or really windy, and you can't make the trip right then. And I think that's another thing that great leaders, they sense when it's time to stay put and when it's time to continue moving forward. Because if you're not careful, you'll leave the docks at the wrong time.
Right.
Something else that I remember them saying is they went into one spot in the Mississippi where there was all kinds of debris in the river. And if they would have hit some of those logs, could have put a hole in their boat. And so it's another thing. Leaders look at the conditions. Is this a time when maybe we slow down or we speed up based on something that could go wrong in front of us? So there's a lot of parallels to navigating through some really fun and strong, fun times and difficult times, and also navigating a business through some trials and tribulations as well.
Right.
Because it isn't always fair sailing. So sometimes there's lots of storms. So have I exhausted my analogy of charting the course?
I've certainly learned a lot about boats.
Well, that's good. Because, if you ever want to get me talking, just ask me a question about boats.
There are a lot of parallels.
There are. And the key is just, leaders, let's make sure that we have planned what's coming, and we're keeping our eye on the horizon, keeping an eye on our charts. Don't trust in your own abilities. You know, there's aids there. There's metrics that are there for a reason. You know, gut feel has its place, but boy, it can get you in a lot of trouble if you just go on your gut feel alone.
Right.
So, where do we go next?
Well, I
have a list.
I don't think we know exactly what's coming up next episode yet.
Okay, we can tell people what we're going to be doing. You know, that we do have a plan, and our plan should take us until you're back, God willing, sooner rather than later. And we're going to do a lot of interviews. You know, I think probably one of the first ones that we're probably going to do is maybe talk to Randy, our president, who is an author, and I just saw the hard copy of his book, which looked really cool.
Oh wow! I need to check out the hardcover. I didn't see it.
It's beautiful. It's just, it's really, really nice.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of exciting interviews coming up.
We do
with some of our staff members, and then also with some people outside of our staff.
Right.
Some family members.
So it should be exciting.
Some MACNY members. So I'm excited to listen to all of those as well.
So you'll be listening from home, and I'll be stressing on how do I get this done without Marissa to help me. So.
I'm only a text away.
But that's good. Well, and so, you know, we wish you all the best as you go out on your maternity leave, and you'll be in our thoughts and prayers that everything goes smoothly.
Thank you.
And we will miss you.
And
for a few months.
I will be back with everyone in November.
Great. Just in time for the most
wonderful time of the year.
That sounds good.
Yes.
All right. Well, so with that, I'm Dave Freund.
I'm Marisa Norcross.
And this was The Next Page.